Michael Carrier.
Deb Hedke.
Joe Wesner.
I've been with Worthington Schools for about 14 years.
School bus driver for Worthington City Schools, and I've been here 11 years.
For a year and a half.
I can't call it a job, I can't call it a career. It's the best deal in town.
My kids went K through 12 in Worthington Schools, and I like kids, and I thought it'd be a really neat thing to do.
What I look forward to every day is just, being around the kids, being around my fellow bus drivers.
And if you love to drive, which I do, and you love kids, which I do, you look forward to going to work on Monday mornings. You don't dread it.
If someone was asking me about the experience I've had at Worthington Schools,
It's fun. Once you learn how to drive the bus, and we have great onboard instructors that teach you how to turn the bus on a dime,
it's a good choice.
and they'll take out any doubt in your mind that you can't do it.
It was for me, and I believe would be for you also.
The kids in Worthington community, I can't speak for other communities, but in our community, the kids will respond, and the parents are very supportive.
And once in a while, I'll run into them at a field trip or a sporting event, and I hear this scream, Mr. Mike, and I look up and I see somebody, and it's one of the kids that I transported for years.
The first day of school, when I picked up and then dropped off the kindergarten students, just the look of joy on the parents' faces when they arrived home from school. Pretty cool.
My grandkids are grown, so being around these kids today is a lot of pleasure. I really enjoy it and look forward to it every morning.
To me, it's the best deal in town. You'd be crazy not to at least consider it.
We fist bump as they get on the bus and fist bump when they get off the bus.
You actually can change kids' lives.
Makes you happy and makes, obviously, the student happy.
Come join us. We're worth it.
Will the treasurer please perform the roll call?
Mrs. Best?
Present.
Mrs. Davis?
Present.
Mrs. Hudson?
Present.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Present.
Mr. Wilson?
Here. At this time, I would like to introduce those of us who are sitting up front. On your far right is Board Member Kelly Davis. Next to her is Board Member Jennifer Best. Next to me on my left, to the right of me from your standpoint, is our treasurer, TJ Cusick. Next to me is our superintendent, Dr. Trent Bowers. Next to him is Board Vice President Nikki Hudson. And on your far left there is Amy Lloyd. At this time, would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve our agenda as it was posted actually almost a week. I believe it was posted last Thursday, even though we didn't meet till 6 days later. I'm not aware of any changes, amendments. Anybody have any changes or amendments? If not, no discussion. Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll on the motion to approve the agenda?
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes. At this time, we are going to have what is without question the board's most favorite time of every board meeting, and that is our opportunity to recognize one of frankly our many outstanding teachers. So at this time, I would certainly entertain a motion to recognize Mary Waba for being named the Central Ohio American Chemical Society Teacher of the Year.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we recognize Ms. Waba for being the Central Ohio American Chemical Society Teacher of the Year. Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right. I want to extend the board's extreme congratulations to Mary Waba. We are extremely proud to recognize our own Mary Waba at Thomas Worthington High School, a science teacher, primarily a chemistry teacher, as the Central Ohio American Chemical Society Teacher of the Year. And at this time, I would like to ask Pete Scully, the principal at Thomas Worthington High School, to join me along with our outstanding award winner. Before Mr. Scully starts talking, I want to send you this certificate. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Give it,
Is that it? All right. Let's give Mary Waba one more hand, please.
So what's been great is that Mr. Wilson did a chance to talk about Mary. Mary actually was honored last week by the American Chemical Society. So we were actually at the point of honor line. She was given a cash award. The school was also given a cash award. We just award our science department. She gets to choose where that goes. So we're really excited to have her as the teacher of the year. I want to tell you a little bit about her because many of you, some of you don't know. First of all, if you check Mary's data,
whether that's any sort of Ohio State testing data that might follow her, or in her case, mostly AP data, or even grade data, what you figure out quickly about Mary is that every kid in her class is important to her, and she works hard to make sure every kid in her class is successful. And it's actually pretty impressive. And so it's really easy to write about her. She's not only a competent chemist, she's not only a scholar herself, but she's an inclusive teacher. She cares about the kids in the room. She works hard to make sure kids know that they're cared about and that they understand the content and that they're prepared. And it's not just that. She's kind of old school too. Like, you will see her show up and do things randomly, like running chemistry Olympiad, not for money, but because she loves chemistry and she knows kids want to do it. Or doing Chem Club and showing up at elementary schools with kids, again, not for money, but because she knows it's important, kids want to do it, and kids love seeing demos at the elementary school level. And so I also happened to see her at the football game, and not only did she stay for the football game, but also for the band presentation afterward. And I was like, "Do you know somebody in the band?" She's like, "No, but I have some kids this year who play football and enter in the band." So that's Mary Waba to her essence. She's a fantastic teacher. She's committed. I'm proud of her as a professional, and I'm proud that she won this award. She deserves it for a variety of reasons. Congratulations, Mary.
Okay, at this time, again, that's for all of us as board members. That's why we do it for people like Mary. She's just phenomenal. So at this time, it's time for visitor comments, and I just want to remind our speakers that first of all, the school board and our administration greatly encourage and appreciate community interest in the meetings of the Board of Education. And this section of the agenda is designed for the sole purpose of enabling the board and the administration to hear the views of community members about our schools or about items on the agenda. Again, I ask each speaker to address the board over here at the visitors podium so that the speaker's remarks may be clearly heard by the board and our administrators. You will have a maximum of 5 minutes, which will be timed up here on the screen here on the sides, each screen. And consistent with our board policy, I do ask that any complaints about particular employees be referred to the superintendent and not be addressed during the public session. And again, I remind all speakers that our district values and respects all people as they are, and that our district is committed to creating and maintaining safe spaces for all our students and for all our community members. Again, we value your input. This is a great chance for you to present your views to the board and the administration, and we certainly greatly appreciate it when community members remember our district's values and refrain. Constructive, very constructive comments. Okay, at this time, we're ready for the superintendent's report. Dr. Bowers.
Okay, good evening. So the mission of Worthington Schools is to empower a community of learners who will change the world. We attempt to do that through 4 vision statements, and so we always organize the superintendent's report under those 4 vision statements. So our first vision statements, we will engage each student with diverse opportunities to maximize every student's potential. Each year, a college and career readiness test is one of the pathways that students may use to meet the test requirement for graduation. So the 2 tests that meet this pathway are the ACT and the SAT. As a public school district in Ohio, we're required to give one of those 2 assessments each year. Obviously, we know that our colleges and universities, at least some of them, use the ACT and SAT to determine student readiness for the rigors of higher education. So state law requires that we administer one of these 2 state-funded assessments in grade 11, and we have to make a decision on which one of those we'll make by September 15th of 2023. So we've made that for this year. So Worthington schools and area districts for a long time were administering the ACT, but this year we noticed an increase in area districts that were moving from the ACT to the SAT. So we have determined that we're going to continue with the ACT for this year because we believe many of our students and families have participated in ACT prep courses, and we don't want to change gears without some warning. But this is kind of that warning to say we're going to continue our research and hopefully this spring make a determination for next year so that families have that notice ahead of time. But again, we may look to move from the ACT to the SAT in future years. No decision yet, but something that we're going to dig into this winter and make sure families have notice. But for this year, it's the ACT. We will provide a safe environment where every student can grow intellectually, emotionally, socially, and physically. Obviously, we've been challenged on that front significantly over the past 7 days. I do want to say that we appreciate the patience of our community as we've dealt with threats over the last week at Worthington Kilbourne High School. We have had a presence in the school at Worthington Kilbourne from local law enforcement, and I do want to say that we appreciate their ongoing support and assistance. The law enforcement investigation into these threats does continue, but there is really no updated information that I can provide. So the investigation continues to include law enforcement from the Columbus Police Counterterrorism Unit, Homeland Security, and the FBI. And I know they're actively working, but again, no update at this time. We knew that in our return to school on Monday, we needed to address both the emotional support and physical safety for our students and staff. Our Kilbourne High School threat assessment team met to review building safety and security, and we felt like we had a solid plan in place for the week. And we've used this event as a catalyst for each Worthington school. So in talking with all of our schools to reevaluate safety procedures, and we want to make sure that our Worthington schools remain as accessible as possible for all the activities and events we love, but also as safe as possible in the world that we're in today. So we're continuing to work through that. Our third update tonight is that we'll provide a consistent communication to promote dialogue in our community. Just want to let everybody know that our communications team is planning to do a community satisfaction survey beginning mid-November. A community satisfaction survey is a tool used to assess the level of satisfaction that residents have with their school district and the services and programs it offers. They typically ask residents to rate their satisfaction with various aspects of the school district. The questions that we'll use are developed in collaboration with Paul Fallon, who's a national-based researcher and has done these surveys for Worthington schools in the past. So why run a community satisfaction survey? Really to identify areas where the district is doing well and areas in room for improvement, to gather feedback from residents on specific issues and initiatives, to track changes in satisfaction levels over time, and to engage residents in decision-making. And I do use the word residents because 70% of our residents don't have kids in school, and a community satisfaction really looks at the wide swath, not just families in the school district. And then our fourth update is we will be responsible and transparent with our community resources. As part of phase 2 of our master facilities plan, we are building a new natatorium south of the current natatorium on the property of Thomas Worthington High School. So we believe the first public hearing for the natatorium with the Worthington Architecture Review Board will be October 12th. So we're excited for that to be a public process. The interior design of the natatorium really has been a collaboration between Swim Inc., which is our nonprofit that runs pools in Worthington, our district swim, water polo, dive, and business staff. The natatorium, as it's currently designed, includes a 10-lane pool with 8 deep water lanes and 2 shallower lanes. It includes offices for Swim Inc., a training room for athletes, locker rooms, public restrooms, etc. It really is an outstanding collaboration. The exterior that will be presented with ARB is designed to bookend the Thomas Worthington site with the MAC on the east and the natatorium on the west. So the MAC is a historic, McConnell Arts Center, the MAC, is a historic space with a modern addition. So the current natatorium design is a take on that historic modern as you bookend those sites. One of the things that's unique is that natatoriums themselves are unique. So we had some south-facing windows that were designed and have been removed at this point because the sunlight from those south-facing windows would cause glare on the water for athletes. So you're figuring some of those things. Some of the west-facing windows are in the place that they are because the ceiling beams line up exactly with the lanes on the water. So a backstroker can use the ceiling beams as a guide. So some of those things can't be moved for that reason. But that limits window placement, et cetera. But it's an exciting project that we expect to break ground this spring. And again, we'll have renderings out here soon on where we are. Obviously, we expect the Worthington ARB to have some feedback and shift those renderings a little bit, but it's an exciting time. And I was made aware today that the link I sent the Board of Education was not working, so I'll resend a different link for you guys. So, Dr. Wilson, that's my report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bowers, for another excellent report. And now we will get a report from our treasurer, Mr. Cusick.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. If you recall, I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I did want to briefly point out that our semi-annual property tax settlement that occurred at the end of August, where we get the bulk of our revenue, was slightly above projections, 2%, mainly related to a single parcel that was increased significantly from 20 million to 36 million. So that generated an additional roughly $1 million in collections this year. Apart from that, the semi-annual settlement was in line with our expectations, so that's good news since, again, that's where the majority of our revenue comes from. A few weeks ago, I participated in Franklin County Sharon Township Turk, which is the Tax Incentive Review Council, which reviews and monitors any and all economic development incentives that have been granted. So when we grant these incentives, there is a mechanism in place to monitor that those developments occur as planned. In this case, we reviewed the Worthington Hills Senior Living Complex that's down at the foot of Worthington Hills. And I'm happy to report that it's performing better than expected with higher payroll and higher property investment than what was originally planned. So that's positive news for that development. A brief legislative update regarding some property tax changes that are being considered. House Bill 187 was passed out of the House Ways and Means Committee last week, and it seeks to use a 3-year average of recent sales instead of the most recent selling price. What it would basically do is artificially lower reappraised values. In my opinion, this is just a quick reaction that essentially removes property values from what their true market value is. And the whole taxation and equalization process is based on everyone paying their fair share on what the market determines is the true value. And so decoupling that essentially will just create winners and losers and have some unintended consequences. It makes more sense to study the broader picture as the budget bill indicated, but I'm afraid there will be a push to get this bill moved through before the year end as the Senate has introduced a companion bill 153. Lastly, later tonight, the board will be asked to approve insurance premium rates for 2024. I'm happy to report these rates represent no increase from current rates during a time when most employers are seeing 6 to 7% or higher increases. With the support of both our labor organizations, the district made a switch to Anthem at the beginning of this year, and we're on track to realize even larger savings than we initially projected. And so that allowed us to add to our reserves and essentially offset what we expect would be a 7% increase in medical trend next year and keep rates the same. As you'll see later this fall when we unveil the new forecast, this translates into a reduction of about $1.5 million annually in future projected costs. And this is a big win for both employees and the district, and marks 2 years in a row of no increase in health insurance rates. I went back, and including this coming year, over the past decade, we've averaged an annual increase of 2.8% in our medical spend. And thus I can say, when we moved to self-insured a decade ago, while somewhat risky during the first few years, as it always is, it certainly has benefited the district in the long run. And I commend employees on the insurance committee who really take the time to dig into understanding the insurance marketplace and make some recommendations. So that is all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cusick, for another excellent report. And now it is the board's turn for board or committee reports and announcements. And I'm going to exercise my prerogative as chair to make one real quick, really important announcement. It's with great honor that I announce that a week ago tonight, our own Kelly Davis was elected to the Central Region Ohio School Boards Association Executive Committee. Congratulations. So she will be on the OSBA Central Region Executive Committee. Kelly, you want to go first?
Thanks, Charlie. That's exciting. So that starts in 2024. Yeah, that's a big move. But before I start my committee report, I feel like I can't start without addressing the recent events that have shaken our community, right? So I did write it out because, as you can hear the tremble in my voice, it's an emotional time for all of us. And so in order for this to go as smoothly as possible, for me to be able to somewhat try to communicate my thoughts regarding this issue, that's why it's typed. So as Rondell would say, get out of your head, but that's just not going to happen today, so it's going to be on paper. So I apologize for somewhat reading to you this evening, but like I said, it will be smoother. So to our Kilbourne family, as a Kilbourne family, sorry doesn't even begin to express how I feel about what you have experienced, what we all have experienced as a community, but specifically for the Worthington Kilbourne families. It's difficult to find the right words to say. And so, you know, at times when you're in spaces like this, right, when people are watching you and observing what you're trying to say, they want you to find the right words, but there are no right words at this time. So sorry is just not enough, but I don't know the right way or the right words to say how exactly I'm feeling and how deeply devastated I am that our community has had to experience something like this. But I do want to express my gratitude to our administration for their swift and decisive action and response to these threats that happened in our community. Your commitment to safety of our district has not gone unnoticed. And your level of support and leadership to our students, our teachers, our families, our staff deserves to be highlighted and applauded. So I thank you all for that. I want to thank the various law enforcement agencies that have been diligently working, and as Dr. Bowers said, are still working to unravel the details of this incident. You hope to come to a conclusion, but I appreciate the actions that they're taking and the importance that they're leveling this. To my colleagues, I'm grateful that we could collectively support our administration during this time. There's not necessarily a playbook for this, right? And so I'm glad that we could support them as they navigated and continue to navigate this devastating situation. The elephant in the room, Bourne. So being that this was it ended up being a targeted, so there was initial, right? And that is devastating to all of our community. That is not to be go unnoticed. But it also targeted our Black students in our community. And I want to point out that I'm grateful for the Worthington Alliance of Black Families and Educators for providing support, and that is needed during this time because hate and racism has no place here in our community at all. And I am deeply appreciative of their leadership and their continued community partnership. So let us remember that at this moment, we need to come together as a community to support one another and especially to stand by those who have been directly affected by these threats. Lastly, I would like to express my gratitude to those who are outside of our community. I know that I have received texts, calls, emails from other community members, other leaders in Central Ohio and beyond who have shown support and offered their assistance. So I say, this is challenging, right? Emotions are high, anxiety is high, and this affects our entire community. It impacts our Worthington-Kilbourne families, but it also impacts the Worthington School District as a whole. And we have to understand that we will all process this differently, okay? And so we need to be able to support each other during times of how we are going to process this incident. And I'd like to emphasize just one more time that this is a time for us to come together as a community and to offer each other support as we navigate the steps ahead, because it doesn't end here. The conversation doesn't stop here. The action doesn't stop here. We don't just move on and go about our business. We can't. So I encourage you to come to the table. I encourage you to be engaged productively. And I encourage you to support one another during this time. That's all I have to say about that, as Forrest Gump would say. So I'm moving on to my committee report, sorry. 2 weeks ago today, Charlie and I met with the Worthington Education Foundation. No, Charlie and I did not. Dr. Bowers and I met with, I saw a lot of Charlie in the last couple of weeks, but with the Worthington Education Foundation. They brought in a consultant to give a presentation to figure out what their next steps are, how they're going to move forward, how they're going to figure out their vision and their values moving forward and create a strategy and action plan. So they did decide to utilize that consultant, and I think it's a really good place for them to move forward from there. So I can't attend the next meeting, but Dr. Bowers can, and then I can attend the next meeting after that, he can't. So anyways, so that's going to be something that's ongoing, but I think it will be something very beneficial for our schools and our teachers. Then last week, Charlie and I, we went to the evening coffee talk that Dr. Bowers hosted on a Monday, and it was a really nice turnout. I was really satisfied with that, and we did get a compliment of thanking us for having a later time. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate Trent and Emily, who's not here, but being there, and it was just really good and open dialogue. I felt like they gave genuine and transparent answers. So if you have an opportunity to attend one of those community coffees, I strongly encourage you to do so. And then lastly, last week, I think it was, right, a week ago, I attended the OSBA Fall Regional Conference. Charlie and I did do that. And the Columbus Alternative students from Columbus Public Schools had a performance. They had a jazz performance that was really nice, and they had a choir performance as well, which was beautiful. The Columbus State president spoke, and I really liked a lot of what he had to say. He talked about the importance of relationships and partnerships within his own organization and partnerships with other people, and how that's very relational and informal in a way. He did talk about Intel coming. You know, everybody's talking about Intel. What I did find very interesting is that he talked about, I believe he said the president of Intel. I don't know if it's the president, CEO of Intel, got his associate's degree before moving on to his four-year degree. So that his point was that there are different pathways for different students, and it just, you know, we have to get used to the fact that that's the case now going forward. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Jennifer?
I'll start with thank you, Kelly, for your very eloquent comments about the situation at Kilbourne. I think you hit every topic and thing we've discussed, and appreciation for everyone. So thank you for stating that so well. We appreciate that. And like Kelly, I've spent a lot of time with Charlie this week on our committee meetings. So we had AAPL committee yesterday, and we met with Kelly and Toya and Kim because Angie is out of town at a Battelle for Kids conference. And what we talked about is the Worthington Schools One plan. And this is a plan that is required because of our federal funding. And they have 3 goals: attendance, curriculum, safe and healthy schools. And they will be presenting these goals and the program, well, to the Curriculum Liaison Council next week. So some of our community members will learn about it. And they will be presenting it to us later this fall. We haven't quite set a date yet, but it will come to us. So I'm not going to get into any more detail. We really appreciate their time and discussion. Charlie and I both said we could have sat there all day and asked them questions and gone over things. It was so interesting, but we could only stay an hour because we had then a facility committee meeting with Jeff Ebley and Tim Gehring. And we even got to go on a field trip with that committee meeting. But I think, as everybody knows, the district has been thinking about the maintenance building that's behind Evening Street. It has needed renovation or a new location. I mean, probably for 10 years, we've been talking about this. And Jeff and Tim have looked at different properties throughout the district that some are empty properties, some have facilities on them, and they picked out one of their favorites, which is over by our bus garage. It's like one building away from our current bus garage. It's got a huge parking lot and a kind of ready-to-go building. So we got to go look at that yesterday afternoon and see what was there. We were very, very impressed with it. They're going to be working with our realtors and hopefully be coming to us with a proposal very soon on what we might be able to do with that maintenance facility. So that's what I have. Do you have anything to add to my 2, Charlie?
I'll add a little bit on my time, but yeah, excellent job. Okay. Nikki.
I can be quick because my policy committee meeting is tomorrow, so we haven't had anything since our last meeting. But I did have a couple of quick questions. Kelly, do you know what the Education Foundation is up to from a board membership yet? I know that they've added a few new board members recently, and I just didn't know if they were at capacity or if they were still seeking additional board members, just so that we make that known to leaders within our community.
So that was I won't say like in-depth conversation, but that was mentioned in Dr. Bowers. You can add in what I don't think that they landed on a yes or a no yet. I do think that they will use this consultant to kind of figure out so they don't get too big and it's not too many cooks in the kitchen, you know? So I believe, if I recall properly, that that's where they landed, yeah.
Where they landed is just they don't know at
That
this
they don't
point.
know
So
yet,
they've
yeah.
added a few additional people to the board, but they don't know if
Yeah, so
they're
there
at
were some new
capacity.
board members there, maybe 3 or 4
Okay.
new people that
Okay.
were, and having been my first board meeting, I don't necessarily know who were the original people
Sure.
and who weren't, but those that mentioned that it was their first meeting, but they did have some dialogue about whether or not to add new members, but I think they're gonna wait until they start with this consultant to figure that part out.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And then so I'll have an update from policy committee next week, but I would be remiss if I didn't also express my gratitude. I think what I walk away with most was your ability to hold 2 truths, which is this is extremely painful, and not that it's not, to paint a positive going forward because we do it together. So a positive path forward because it is one that we all take on together. So thank you for those words of wisdom.
I too will express my gratitude for you sharing your words this evening. I think that we all know what impact all of last week had. And I'm grateful for everything that you shared because I feel the same way. So with that being said, I don't really have much else to share. As far as committees for me, key communicators will be getting started tomorrow with our first meeting of the year. The only other thing I wanted to share was Kelly and I did attend a pool meeting 2 weeks ago. And basically the high points of that meeting is that the city of Worthington is getting ready to start a survey that's going to go out to community members about the pool. They are also using Fallon Research. And I don't know if we have a date on when that will be coming back, but it is supposed to be happening soon. And then city council plans to have a discussion following that. So we should know more once that occurs about what might be happening or what discussions might be happening after that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. First of all, I want to say I can't thank you enough, Kelly, for your eloquent and extremely clearly heartfelt comments. I had, in fact, prepared a statement, but I'm not going to follow up that one. That was a great statement. But I do want to say just a couple of things that I've always been proud of this district, its administrators, and its staff. But in particular, last week and over the weekend, I couldn't be more proud. I was here all day Friday as a number of staff from Worthington High School were here, and I was here again on Sunday, and they were laser focused on, number one, what was the situation with respect to the students and how they could support the students. And it was, even though the Sunday meeting was really for the teachers and the staff, their focus again was really laser focused on how can we support our students. And it was, again, not surprising at all, but it was just so heartwarming and reassuring to see how focused, starting from Mr. Thomas as the principal at Worthington Kilbourne. And to be honest with you, I mean, our security monitors, our mental health specialists, truly incredible. They care about kids and they care about the staff, and they're totally invested. And I don't know who to thank for such wonderful people that we've hired, whether it be Jeff Maddox or Eric Thomas or whomever, but they really are invested. All 4 security monitors and Nikki and I on Monday morning had the opportunity to be there as students were getting off the bus and were being dropped off at Worthington Kilbourne High School. And again, the security monitors are just, they care about those kids. They're there for those kids. And what was really heartwarming was the kids care about the security monitors. I mean, they know these folks, and you know, it's just incredible to watch the relationship between the security monitors and the students. It's just wonderful. So, but thank you very much, Kelly, for your comments. Again, as Kelly said, a week ago tonight, we were at the Central Region Fall Conference, and I thought Dr. Williams, the Columbus State president, did a great job of emphasizing his willingness to accept phone calls from anybody from our district or from all districts in Central Ohio to partnership, especially as Intel accepts. So I think that's somebody we shouldn't forget about. And I have to point a personal privilege. I'm also a person with an associate arts degree, and I'm a strong proponent of many of our students starting out at a junior college. It got me a great foundation, and so I could go on and do finish college and finish graduate work and law work. But yeah, so that was great. On that same day, a week ago today, we had the insurance committee that Mr. Cusack has referred to, and again, they approved the treasurer's recommendations with respect to the premiums. And I have to echo what Mr. Cusick said. Again, our employees, our union leaders, everybody, they're so supportive. They ask great questions. They're really, really invested in making sure we have the best possible and well-funded health insurance plan possible. On, I guess it's been a week ago Thursday, or 6 days ago, the PTA Council met here in this room, and I realized at that time that this was my last meeting probably of attending the PTA Council. My wife and I were reflecting on that afterwards, and actually they asked before that. So I've been going to those. I first went to one 30 years ago, so I'll miss that. But we are blessed in this community too to have a PTA and parents that are truly invested in our district. Angie did a great job of making a presentation at the council. Then I guess I should have followed Jennifer's. I didn't want to break. I'd already abused my prerogative of going first to recognize Kelly. But so yeah, the Academic Achievement Committee, Kelly and Tanya did a great job of a presentation. It could have gone on all afternoon as we had so many questions, but they had a great question. The one Worthington plan is mandated by the state. We must do that. It's a state mandate. Because the federal monies flow through the state. That's the way it's set up. So it's a state mandate. And they also require that we as a board approve the plan. But both of us grilled Kelly that there's no deadline for that, kind of a peculiar situation. But we must approve it. But there's no rush for that. That was my concern, was did we need to do it as soon as possible? I didn't want to lose any funds or anything. But Kelly assured us that there's no deadline, it's just a requirement. So over the next few months, probably get some kinds of presentations, but Kelly did a great job. And then we had our field trip at the facilities committee yesterday. Again, it was a tour of a potential location for our maintenance facility and bus garage and so forth. I want to thank, notwithstanding the traffic, I want to thank our chauffeur, Jeff Eveling, for a great job and a great presentation, and thank Tim and Randy for coming along too. I must say, Jennifer, though, my recollection is back in 2007, when I first came onto the board, Paul Sinkar and I believe Tim Gehring gave me a tour of the maintenance barn behind Evening Street and said, we've got to do something about this place in the next couple of years. And it's now 2023, almost 17 years later.
I was going to say, I said 10 years, so it's been 17 years.
Yeah, at least 17 years that we need to do something. And the time has come, and it's really, really important that we do something. But I trust our administrators to do the right thing. But it's needed, and that was a really good site. So I think that's all I have. Any other comments, anything that popped in your minds? All right, thank you very much for excellent board reports. And now, Mr. Cusick, we're ready for actions that you recommend that we take.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve routine financial items D2 and D3. D2 are the minutes from the September 11th meeting, and D3 are routine general fund cross-object transfers.
At this time, I would entertain a motion that we approve items D2 and D3 as recommended by the treasurer.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the items in D2 and D3 as recommended by the treasurer. Are there any questions, discussion, or comments?
I'm just going to comment that I was not at the September 11th meeting, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay, would you want us to break those apart, or? Okay.
It's okay.
Okay. I think it'll pass.
Yeah, I think it'll pass. I'm
All
not
right.
worried about it.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. Then, Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Hudson,
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Best,
Abstain.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Motion to approve the actions recommended by the treasurer has passed. Now we're ready for recommendations by the treasurer with respect to new business, specifically the insurance premiums. Mr. Cusick.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the health, dental, vision, and life insurance premium rates for January 2024 through December 2024 as presented and listed in your handout. Again, these amounts represent no change from calendar year 2023.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the recommendation of the treasurer with respect to insurance premiums, and also, I guess the insurance committee is also supports these this recommendation. Any questions or comments? I just want to reiterate what Mr. Cusick said in his report, which was that it's pretty unusual over the last few years that how low we've been able to keep the insurance premium, or either flat or the increases. So a good job to everybody. That's a real joint effort, but congratulations and thank you. All right, if there are no other discussion or questions, Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll on the motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation with respect to insurance premiums?
Mrs. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, Dr. Bowers, the personnel consent agenda.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda. That's items F2 through F9 on your agenda. Again, items F2 through F9, please.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the board approve the superintendent's recommendation with respect to the consent agenda items F2 through F9. Any questions, comments, observations? If not, Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Yes.
Motion passes. We have approved the consent agenda personnel items. Dr. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item G1, the acceptance of the donations that are on your agenda. Item G1, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the superintendent's recommendation with respect to the donations. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson?
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes. Motion passes. Are there any comments, requests, questions, concerns from the board? Kelly.
At our September 11th meeting, I know you weren't here, Jennifer, but we talked about discussing Portrait of a Learner and how we were going to address whether we all go or if we designate 2 individuals going. And I know, Nikki, you went to the first meeting, so maybe if you could give some feedback as to what you think maybe would be beneficial to that.
Yeah, I would be glad to. Assuming that the structure is very similar going forward, really where you're communicating is in small groups. You're not communicating in a large setting, so you're not communicating with the same people and with each other. So I think similar to what Charlie had indicated, his perception was of our ability, our opportunities moving forward. It could be something that absolutely we all attended going forward without a violation of the Sunshine Law. So I again, like, had any of you been there, as long as we were in separate small groups, we wouldn't have been communicating with each other or with the same people. So you move around with your table and engage in different projects or analysis.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I did hear it in your discussions of the last meeting, and I've got it on my calendar for next week with a question mark.
Yeah.
I'm totally comfortable with that. I'll be honest with you, I did take on, or say I would contact Sarah Clark. I did prepare 2 emails and my computer crashed both times, and I have to admit that kind of fell through the cracks. But I'm, as Nikki has spelled it out and is actually having talked to Angie as well, I'm totally comfortable with all of us attending, or all of us who are able to attending, as long as we make sure that we don't do, well, two things. Don't sit at the same table. Actually, two of us could sit at the same table. But frankly, I think it's better for the community and for all of us to sit at different tables, would be my thought anyway. And that we don't be the reporter or anything like that. Don't talk along that. So I'm very comfortable with that. Okay. Any other? Thank you for raising it, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you.
You're awesome. Anything else? All right. I have none. The calendar. Again, our next board meeting goes back to Monday. Monday, October the 9th, which at 6:30, our regular time, regular place here. And then our following meeting is on, again, Monday, October 23rd, regular time, regular place. And then I do want to point out our first meeting in November will not be on the second Monday in November, but on Wednesday, I guess that would be the third Wednesday actually, but the Wednesday, November 15th. The reason for that is because Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday are the OSBA's Capital Conference, which our board has done a very good job of always attending, and there's always events going on Monday night. And so to avoid those conflicts, we have, in recent times, moved it to Wednesday. So,
Yeah. Charlie, I'll just share that on the 23rd, I will be out of the state at a professional conference, so I won't be at that meeting.
okay, thanks for letting us know. So, okay. Any other comments about scheduling? If not, I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session for the sole purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of employees, and take a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we move into executive session. That's not a debatable motion. So, Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Hudson,
Yes.
Mrs. Lloyd,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Okay, we have passed the motion to enter an executive session. We will come out of executive session to adjourn the meeting, but there will be no votes other than the motion to adjourn. After the executive session is over, you're certainly welcome to hang around, but you're not welcome to come to executive session. But we will take no votes. There will be no discussion whatsoever after the executive session. And we will enter an executive session subject to adjournment later on tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and have a good evening. And I hope it's not raining out there.